Here with me now, addiction medicine specialist and host of Ask Dr. Drew. It's the one and only Dr. Drew. Drew, you were the first person I thought about in terms of who I wanted to talk to because you've treated so many people just like Taylor Hawkins. You're one of the few people who understands, not only their physiology, but the mental fortitude it takes year after year to make people the happiest they've ever been. People spend tons of money to go see you play, and you have to radiate in a stadium of tens of thousands of people and give them their best night ever. And the kind of pressure for a sensitive person to do that year after year, it's unimaginable, and it's something that a lot of people aren't talking about today.
Right, that's absolutely true. And everything you've heard about Taylor, I've known him for a long time, is true. He was a wonderful guy. And the disease of addiction only takes wonderful, talented, intelligent people. I mean, primarily. That's one of the reasons I like working with the disease, and it's one of the reasons that it's so devastating when people don't make it. He had life-threatening opiate addiction. As you said, he had a near-death overdose in 2001 that defined his opiate history as life-threatening. The reality is the prognosis from opiate addiction, not properly treated, meaning every day managed by a professional team or some active participation in mutual aid society or both, if you're not doing something every day, your life is in danger. And the prognosis is worse than the majority of cancers. People need to treat these disorders as such. Now, your point about the work, yeah, people like Taylor love their work. He loved it. I mean, he knew he was bringing joy to millions of people. And it was relatively effortless for him. Reality is, I mean, he had to work his butt off at it, but it was not as though it was, trying for him. He loved doing it. And that actually is the problem with people with substance use disorder when they are in the public eye like this, when they're performers. The most serious risk to their recovery is returning to work too early. They love their work. They make lots of money doing the work. People around them make money, and they push them back to work prematurely. To me, the greatest example of this was Robert Downey when he kept trying to go back. If you remember, he'd started acting and ended up getting worse and worse and worse. Finally, he left for 3 years, contemplated that he would never work again, just focused on his recovery, and now he has a glorious career in addition to a great recovery.
So, I mean, I don't want to be insensitive, but I get so heartsick hearing these stories. It's like, whether people die from overdose like Heath Ledger and Shannon Hoon, or people take their own lives like Kurt Cobain and Chris Cornell and Chester Bennington, is there something similar in all of their makeup? Is there something where you're walking a line between life and death?
Well, oh boy, that's a complicated question, Kennedy. That depression certainly is a common feature of addictive pathologies, and trauma is even a more important and more common feature of people with tough addictions. And so it is the trauma that's often the underlying source of all the misery and pain that the opiates are supposed to treat, the drugs are supposed to treat, and it is also a source of mood disturbance. And sometimes when people have been using drugs for long periods of time, it's hard to find satisfaction in life and in sort of the routine kinds of experiences of life, that certain parts of the brain are not as responsive as they should be, so they can have sort of a flat feeling about the world. It can be extremely challenging. Yeah, that mood disturbances are a common feature. And then there is another aspect to drug addiction, which is some people flirt with death as an active part of their disease.
Yeah.
And that's not really suicide. It's just part of where they take this thing.
Man, it's heartbreaking. It's like I'm sure we'll learn more about the circumstances of his passing, but it's like I hope someone internalizes.
Let me just say,
yeah, go ahead, please.
Let me just say that there's heard reports about something to do with some cardiac pathology. They say his heart was very large. That's all secondary to the drugs. Trust me, whatever that is, it's going to be secondary to the drugs and alcohol. The primary story here is the drug and alcohol. And please, it is time we take this condition as serious as we take other serious life-threatening conditions. Look on the streets of certainly Southern California, and you're seeing people dying at 6 a day of this same illness. And my goodness, and we just let it happen.
All right, Dr. Drew, thank you so much. Good to talk to you.
You bet. Thanks, Kennedy.